Hello and welcome to Housing Development, the program that brings you in-depth analysis of the housing sector in Nigeria. I'm your housing diva, Flora Ani, and today we'll be diving into one of the most crucial issues shaping the future of housing in our country, the 2025 housing budget. Housing is a basic human need, and with Nigerians' growing population and a housing deficit estimated at over 20 million units, the 2025 budget is a critical step in addressing this national challenge. But does this year's budget meet the needs of the people? It's been an incredible year of growth, innovation, and impact in housing and real estate across Africa and beyond, from groundbreaking housing projects to pivotal policy changes. The strides made in 2024 have set new standards and opened doors for an even brighter future. What opportunities and challenges lie ahead? Stay with us as we analyze the figures, highlight key initiatives, and speak with experts about what this allocation means for the average Nigerian right after the trending news in the sector.
The Chief Executive Officer of Adamakin Investment and Works Limited, Afolabi Akindele, has said 90% of Lagos building does not have mortgage insurance. He disclosed this at the 137th remembrance of Iyalode, late Mrs. Efunroye Tinubu, recently in Lagos. Akindele said that 90% of these buildings cannot have viable mortgage insurance without having a registered title. He further stated that the oldest title in Nigeria is a title owned by Madam Tinubu since 1912, registered in Alausa since 2008, which sadly was blocked or embargoed by Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Rivers Commissioner for Fiscal Planning and Urban Development, Evans BP, Sunday, said no death was recorded in the collapsed three-story building in Ikwerre local government area. The commissioner, in a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Emeka Idika, said the affected building under construction collapsed on Saturday, January 4th, 2025. He said a timely rescue mission by the ministry and that of the special duties, alongside other joint efforts, averted the loss of lives as victims were taken to the hospital for medical care. The commissioner said no fewer than 7 persons sustained various degrees of injuries in the incident. The Nigerian Society of Engineers has expressed concerns over the federal government's recent appointment of non-engineers to critical positions that require professional engineering expertise. The society specifically pointed out the appointments made within the newly reconstituted executive management of the 12 River Basin Development Authorities (RBDAs) under the Federal Ministry of Water Resources. According to the NSE, many of the individuals appointed to the senior engineering roles, such as Executive Director, Engineering, and Executive Director, Planning and Design, lack the necessary qualifications and professional credentials. The Society's findings revealed that only 4 of the appointments were allocated to qualified engineers. NSE President Mrs. Margaret Oguntala voiced her concerns over the implications of these appointments for Nigeria's water resources management and the long-term sustainability of the sector. She emphasized that the River Basin Development Authorities play a crucial role in managing the country's water resources, which are vital for agriculture, environmental sustainability, and economic growth. The Minister of FCT, Nyesom Wike, has assured that the 50 individuals detained for vandalizing manhole covers on Abuja's roads will be prosecuted. The suspects were caught with 25 stolen manhole covers and solar street lights. In a statement on Monday, Wike stressed that the suspect would face the full force of the law as a deterrent to others. He further promised that those who buy or use stolen public infrastructure would also be apprehended and prosecuted for economic sabotage and endangering public safety. Wike commended the swift actions of security agencies and emphasized that the FCT administration's zero-tolerance stance on vandalism and other criminal activities would continue. He also praised residents who have shown patriotism by reporting such crimes, urging FCT residents to continue using social media to expose criminals and help protect public amenities.
For more housing, finance, and construction news, do well to visit www.africanhousingnews.com. Now, let's start with a big picture. On 18 December 2024, the President presented the 2025 budget, a record of 49.74 trillion naira, a 41.9% increase from the previous year. This allocation to the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development in the 2025 budget is 88.14 billion naira. Is this allocation enough to tackle the housing deficit in the country? The focus area this year include affordable housing for low-income earners, slum upgrading and urban renewal project, sustainable housing and eco-friendly construction method. This ambitious plan, but how realistic are they within the confines of the budget? Up next, we'll be speaking with our guest, Mr. Femi Oyedele, to unpack these priorities.
Hi, I'm Bob Weinsheng, CEO of iBuild Global. Keep watching the Housing Development Program.
It's good news. Are you a stakeholder in the built environment, or you are looking for an authentic, credible source for housing and construction news in Africa? You now have an opportunity. Africa International Housing Show has now created a unique opportunity for you by establishing a full-fledged housing television, the first of its kind in Africa. You can now access information on home ownership, rental, building materials, finance, real estate and insurance, among others, all on Housing TV Africa, channel 149 on StarTime.
So today we're focusing on the outlook for Nigeria's housing sector in 2025. Joining me now is Mr. Femi Oyedele, the MD, CEO of Fame Oyster & Co. He's also an estate surveyor and valuer. Mr. Femi, thank you for being here today. So now let's go straight to the questions. What are the key trends expected to shape Nigeria's housing sector in 2025 from your own perspectives?
We thank God for another good year. And we in the housing industry, we are hoping that this year will be better than 2024. 2024 wasn't a very bad year, but it was not as rosy as we had in 2023. But you see, because it was an election year, we are transiting from one government to another. So it was expected. Now, this year, the trends that we are looking at that we make the housing market in Nigeria to be rosy are: one, the president promised that from 37.5% inflation rate, we'll be having, before the end of May, we'll be having around 15% as inflation rate. That is a good one for the housing industry. The second thing is that the dollar is going to be appreciating. We have started seeing it from 1,700 in November last year. Now we have around 1,470 naira dollar to naira to a dollar. No, this is a good sign that housing will be having it good this year. Then the third issue is the floating of Ministry of Finance Incorporated, which the president started with 250 billion naira. That's the real estate investment fund that was committed to MOFI. MOFI is a Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Now, this Ministry of Finance Incorporated is joining federal government housing organization like Federal Housing Authority, Family Home Fund, and a mortgage refinancing company. Now, with the collaboration of all these government agencies, I believe the property developers in Nigeria will be having it fine. And we are looking forward to a better housing sector this year.
All right, before we go to the area of the budget, you've looked at the positive aspect of what we're likely to see in 2025 in the housing sector. Now, while we're looking at those positive areas, let's also look at some challenges we might likely face this year in the housing sector. So how can these challenges also be addressed?
A challenge that as I see in the budget is that the inadequate provision. You see, I'm going to be frank with you. We have discussed this before, and we are going to be continue to discuss it. Unfortunately, the federal government is not. It doesn't want to be too optimistic. That is why we have this what I will call conservative budget. Yes, because if you compare our budget this year with the budget of countries like Egypt and South Africa, you will see that it's not as bogus as those of those countries that I've mentioned. Now, but we have tried. Last year we had 28.75 trillion as budget. This year we are talking of 49.7, almost 50 trillion as budget. Yeah. It has nearly doubled. But the provision for housing, the provision of housing is our concern, is small compared to what we expected. But we will try. So in the
looking at the housing deficit in the country.
I would suggest that yes, looking at the housing deficit in the country per what the budget allocated to the housing sector, I think is very small. But that is not a big challenge. What we are now trying to look at is what we call PPP, public-private partnership. We can assist government in bridging that gap, that housing gap of close to 22 million units now by adopting PPP, which is public-private partnership. We are looking at a situation where federal government or state governments, it's not only the federal government that should provide housing. State governments should also play prominent roles. Now, we will now partner with these governments, federal, state, local, mostly they operate in the rural area. When it comes to urban area, it's state. So we now partner with state governments, federal governments, we get land and then develop affordable housing for the people. Government cannot do it alone, especially with the budget of restoration that we have now. They have tried, but they can't do it alone. So the private sector must play their role too.
Okay, now let's look at the issue of implementation. Do you think the housing budget adequately addresses infrastructure needs like roads, electricity, and water? Those are the critical, these things are very, very critical when it comes to housing projects in Nigeria. Those infrastructures that are needed.
Thank you. You see, it's like we are just starting to have a structural government. The past, we have lacked vision in the past, and we have allowed a lot of what I would call funds to go down the drain, meaning that the past budget, we have nothing to show for the past budgets in the country. Now, there is a World Economic Forum infrastructural table. That's World Economic Forum. Annually, they produce a table to rank nations according to their infrastructural index. in the 2023 table, Nigeria ranked 123 out of 186 that was surveyed, or 186 countries that we are surveyed, that we are visited. Nigeria ranked 123. So you can see the wide gap. Now, saying the truth, the federal government cannot provide the infrastructures like road, bridges, etc. in a year. It's not possible. And then the population of the country is not remaining stagnant. We are increasing every day, meaning that the demand will be higher every year. So with the government, with the provision or with the allocation this year, though it is higher than the allocation for last year, but it is not adequate. It is not adequate. So I want to implore the federal government to what I will call implement to invest the scarce resource that we have. The resources, the budget is just too small. It's too small for our population. We are over 220 million. And then the federal government must make sure that there is no mistake. We must do proper needs assessment. That is infrastructure investment appraiser, so that we'll be hitting the nail on the head. We'll not be wasting money. All these properties that we have abandoned, they are abandoned because they missed the objectives of investment, meaning that probably government didn't do proper work before embarking on it, and it's a waste of scarce resources. So we should not be repeating this again with our Niagara budgeting for the housing industry. We need rules. Not housing is a what I will call complex asset. When you are defining housing, you must not only mention the shelter, you must mention the access road, mention infrastructural like drainages, mention electricity. In fact, so I see housing as a living space. Everything around man is housing.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Huh? What is it again?
Oga, at the drive this car, my mind no dey. My landlord is on my neck.
Your landlord again? I thought I have told you this before. Get a mortgage, register with NHF scheme, and get a home up front. What is so difficult about this?
Oga, I will do just that. See, I will shame that my landlord. Mortgage.
At the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, everyone deserves a home.
All right, I've been speaking with Mr. Femi Oyedele, the MD, CEO of Fame Oyster & Co. Moving on, earlier this week we took to the streets to hear what Nigerians think about the 2025 housing budget and their hopes and expectations for 2025. Here's what some had to say.
My expectation and my wish for housing sector this year, if the government can, we will discover if they can improve in housing costs for low income earner. Like in Abuja in particular, you discover that the cost of rent is very, very high. And if the FCT minister can do something about it, if you go to Gwarimpa, other estates, they build big houses, nobody's occupying it. They build it, those houses are there for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, even 20 years. Nobody is there, and people are paying high for housing. And some people cannot afford houses. You see a house with about going for about 2.something million per a year. How much is the income? So if government can improve on that, I think it will be okay.
Well, to me, I feel they should make housing more affordable to everyone, especially the low-income earners. We are in a country where even the common man on the street is paying the same rent with someone who is in a higher position. So if the government should look into it and make it more easier for those who are earning so little, can be able to afford a more comfortable and affordable housing.
My wish and my expectation for the housing sector in the city of Abuja this year is to government to also look at the area whereby it's not everybody that earn the same salary, because you find out that in almost every area in Abuja the landlord have increased their house rent, not knowing whether you're doing daily job or you're doing a monthly job or you're doing civil servant or public service. All the landlords have just increased their rent. So what I'm just trying to, my wish is for them to look at the low salary income. Those people who are not, their income is not as much as those people who can afford to pay 1,500,000 and the rest yearly for their house rent. Let them also look at those people, those low salary earners who is just trying to survive in the city of Abuja, and let the government also look how it can bring in ways to help the citizens, those people living in those areas.
I feel the government are doing so much, but they need to do a lot more, like extending the sector to other states that are within the environment, so that those who are working within the state too and outside the state can have a housing scheme loan that will help them to cut down some excesses because of the cost of things in Nigeria today. I think by so doing that, it's going to help a lot of things and the people at large. So that is what I expect the government should do.
If government can look into the association of landlord, they should call them and have a liaison with them and discuss the proper standard of pricing, like the house rent, because a landlord cannot wake up at the middle of the day and just increase his rent without considering if the tenant are having increment in salary and other things. So I think government can look into it and call the attention of all landlord association and make sure that they regulate their price and make sure it's fair and reasonable to the society.
All this housing, it's few people that can afford all these houses, especially as you want to call it, as a area. The house fare there is big. A room self 600, 700, 1 million. Abba, I will see someone cope with that. So I think government should please come in seriously, because house rent in Abuja is not a small thing. It's something that is really, really serious. So we need government to help us out on that issue.
It's clear that while the 2025 housing budget is a step in the right direction, implementation and accountability will be key. To ensure success, we need transparency in project execution, collaboration between government and private sector players, policies that make home ownership easier for everyday Nigerians. Well, this is not just about numbers on paper. It's about ensuring every Nigerian has a place to call home. Coming up next is our Women Cross Wednesday. Our Women Cross this day is Dr. Chi Akpoji, the chairperson, board of directors at the Shelter Africa Development Bank, and urban development and housing finance specialists.
Our Woman Crush this Wednesday is Dr. Mrs. Chi Akpoji, currently the chairman, board of directors at Shelter Africa, and an urban development and housing specialist. She is a wife, a mother, and a real estate refinance expert. She holds a PhD in comparative literature from the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and an MA in modern Anglo-Irish studies from the University of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Chi Akpoji is the former Director, Policy, Corporate Strategy and Partnerships at NMRC, with over 20 years' experience in development finance, housing and economic development. She was the founding coordinator of the Nigerian Housing Finance Program, which birthed the NMRC. Dr. Akpoji was the senior advisor to the former coordinating minister for the economy and the Honorable Minister of Finance of Nigeria, Dr. Mrs. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She served in various capacities at the World Bank Group, such as development consultant on education and health issues for the African region between 2003 and 2004, coordinator, communications and partnerships for Cities Alliance between 2005 and 2012, amongst others. She loves reading, writing, and playing tennis. All of these amazing qualities are what makes Dr. Mrs. Chi Akpoji our woman crush this Wednesday.
That's it on today's episode of Housing Development. Remember, housing is not just a sector, it's the foundation of our lives and communities. Join me next week as I explore innovative housing solutions, transforming lives across the country. As always, I am Flora Ani, your housing diva. Thank you for watching and bye for now.